Rick, you know how much I love you, man.
Keith,
You do,
we have
right?
a great. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You do, right?
Oh, I love you, and I love our buddies, and I love my life, and it's a wonderful thing to share that with another person, and it's a wonderful thing to have friends in addition to lovers, who you can say I love you to.
Yeah, it's great, man. Maybe we should do a show about, you know, about relationships that historically, at least in this country, to express "I love you" to people or to be open and vulnerable, it was kind of frowned upon. And
Well, it would be a great show just to talk about it from the point of view of how we're socialized as men to avoid that. Like saying "I love you" is for many men a trap. I think we're taught that you say "I love you" just before you get married, and then you might do it on every anniversary. But to another man, whoa, that I mean, and you being from the Marine Corps, I can't imagine a more macho, masculine area where you didn't say you loved any of your colleagues, even though you were fighting to the death to protect them.
yeah, you're exactly right, man. And this kind of ties into, I think we can kind of do that show now, that this kind of ties into letting go of those mental concepts and narratives that other people have given us, and then we've adopted them as our own,
Mm.
and what has limited us with. And this kind of comes from a colleague, and he's fast becoming a friend that I work with over, Mayo. His name is Chris Kendall, or Kendall. And he talked about, it's not about what I believe, it's about what I give, about what I want to give. Again, it's not about what I believe, it's about what I want to give. And he was talking about in this cage of keyboard warriors. I love that.
Yes.
People have opinions that travel you, that challenge you, all over in the workplace, in the personal life. And it can often come up with come against your beliefs and those narratives about what you think on a wide range of subjects that sometimes can be limiting. But if you let go of that identification with those narratives or those concepts, what it creates is space for you to look at, and as Chris, so correctly and positively encourages us to do, it allows us to focus on what you want to give. And I think that's just a beautiful thing. And so, yeah, I've been thinking about that. I didn't grow up the way I grew up. Uh, my mom, I never heard her tell me "I love you" when I was growing up. She showed it through just the way she lived her life, man. And so I knew that I was
Mhm.
loved, man. It wasn't until I went off to the Marine Corps and we were in, the war had started, that her letters start to have "I love you" in them.
Mm.
And I was like, what is this? Like, we don't we don't say that to each other. Like, it was uncomfortable. And then when I came back, her partner shared with me about how distraught she was that she wasn't hearing from me because the war had started, and that she was really, afraid that, I might, get killed or something like that. And that emotion came out. And so it made me think, I didn't do it then, but I thought about it like, do we need a challenging life event to happen for us to allow that kind of connection with human beings to be expressed? And little by little, I think that event started to allow me to start expressing how I feel about people without it meaning anything other than like, my love for you is unconditional. And so we have, all the group of guy friends, I think all of them that, that I've developed a friendship with always say like, "I love you," to them. And we all say it to each other like all the time, man. It's just this beautiful thing to guys who didn't say that to each other before.
That's right.
We always say it like, and you and I, every podcast, we say it. And I think every once in a while, man, I'll meet somebody who is a guy that would become friends or whatever, or I express, "Hey, listen, let me tell you." They'll say, "Hey, Keith, man, you're doing a lot for me," stuff like this. I was like, well, I want to create a friendship with you in which is nurturing. We cultivate it and we help each other grow. We contribute to each other's lives.
Mm.
And part of that, we get to the point like, oh, I love everybody, but then I'm going to, start expressing that I love you. And for a lot of guys, man, it's uncomfortable for them, man. But before they know it, they suspend those kinds of limitations based on, how they've been conditioned growing up. And before you know it, man, they're saying, I love you back. And they're like, it's the easiest thing. Yeah, it's all easy to be loving and kind and to be expressive when you give up all the mental concepts or restrictions that were in the way of you just sharing with another person. In our society, I think that it could, and you can speak on this, it's associated with being weak and, not sharing, being vulnerable and all those things. And man, vulnerability, and being authentic is just so beautiful, man, especially when it's respectful of other people, and so I love what Chris says, man. Doing that has really allowed me to really focus on what I can give as opposed to being so identified with what I believe. What are your thoughts?
Well, there's lots of things that we can comment on. One of the things that I like with Mr. Kendall, or is it Dr. Kendall's?
I think he's good with both.
Okay, let's call him the doc.
Okay.
With Doc Kendall's idea is that, if you set aside, it's a wonderful thing, and we can't help but have core values, and we should cultivate core values based on our own experiences and what's successful and what's helpful to others and helpful to ourselves and so on. But we're all going to have a little bit of different take on core values. We're all trying to do the right thing in our own personal lives. And we're in a country right now that's so massively divided that the core values that we think we have and we assumed everyone else had are in controversy. But when you dig down a little deeper into the issue, if you forget about talking about core values, or you forget for a moment about judging another person because you perceive they may have a different set of values than you, what we come back to is what humans have always come back to, which is collaboration, which is working cooperatively for a result that benefits everyone. And so one of the things I'm thinking about with the doc's quote is that, if you go into a position, let's say, of having to file an income tax return for a company you work for, all of the people who work for that company probably have different core values. But each of those departments has to contribute in some way to some of the records, some of the data that would allow the company to have a good tax return and whatever return of money that they're entitled to, or all of the deductions they're entitled to. So my point is that if we stopped in the corporate setting with each of the departments and looked at the departments and said, I'm not going to cooperate with finance because I think they're a bunch of fill in the blanks because they're different than me in my core values. And I'm not going to cooperate with transportation because this guy, I think he's fill in the blank. My point is nothing would get done. On the other hand, if you put all the core value stuff aside and you just enjoy that person for whom or who she is, and just do the job and do the work with a common goal of getting it right, we can put aside all those core values and go back to where we were with respect to cooperating. And I think we really miss that in this country right now. I would just love to be able to take a random group of people, say 20 cars in the freeway going to work, and just find a way where all those 20 cars could pull into a place where there would be like a community meeting, have a coffee pot, and then work out, have coffee and work out maybe, let's say, 2 or 3 issues. Okay, we're having trouble with getting funding for the highway department. And just those random people, I'm sure, could solve it, even though they come from vastly different walks of life. Old, young, men, women, immigrants, not speaking English, who knows? Everybody can make a contribution. So I guess my point is that I'm thinking that to the extent that we allow our opinions and our judgments to get in the way of our humanity, there's problems. Because the root thing of the human, I mean, we're like other animals that require social lives, and we depend on other people, and we have a chip in our head that requires us to pay attention to other people and to cooperate with other people. And if we don't pursue that isolation is dooming. It's really a problem.
Rick, man, so well said. I love the example you used to illustrate the point of the corporation. And there's something else you said that really resonated with me too, and that is if we could suspend those beliefs or values that are in the way of us seeing the humanity in other people. And so, since we have these varying core values, what's one way to kind of cut through those differences so that we can see the humanity? And I think it's, to your point, to ask the question, is what I'm thinking about to do, or this value, is it something that is a contribution to all of humanity, not just members of humanity that share my views or look like me, but all of humanity, regardless of their choices, regardless of their beliefs? And if your core values in line with that, then it opens you up to give to everyone. However, I put forth that if your core value or your religious belief allows you to create this narrative or this separation of us and them, they can consider that it's not. I mean, how much of it is a contribution to humanity, to all of humanity? And I think that's would be a great way to evaluate, your contribution. And that's certainly the one that I've started to adopt with the practice, is that all those beliefs that I had, that some of which were based in religion, a lot of it based in my own conditioning and subjective experiences, they excluded so many people from my life. Not only did it create a situation in which I was not giving to people that thought or believed differently than me or came from different backgrounds or had different religious beliefs, but I was robbing myself of their contribution to my growth or help me in a way. I think about some of the coaches. There's a coach in the NBA. He was deeply self-identified with his religious faith, and he's a former coach now because his boss, I think the team president or the GM, happened to his sexual orientation was different than the mainstream. And so this guy, was preaching one day, and he said something about it. And it was not inclusive. It was not loving. It was not kind. And it cost him his job. I mean, and that's, it hurts all of us. And then it hurts us personally when we're limited by our beliefs instead of being opened by them. That it opens our heart to other people. And so that's the one thing that I think of. I am so committed to letting go of identification with beliefs and narratives that prevent me from having an open heart to everybody.
Well, Keith, we can all get, even if it's not a question of a spiritual growth or a growth in your self-respect or a contribution effect that you're talking about, even if it isn't any of that. I think that if you just put aside your opinions about whatever the hell you got opinions on and just work with another person, it's a lot of fun and you get a lot out of it, right? I just don't understand why you could go down that path where one is much more restrictive of your options and your happiness and your joy, and another path that would open all of that up, but the only condition is you got to leave your opinion at the door. It seems like an easy pick to me.
It is when you're on the path. If you're not on the path, you got fear running. You got fear running your life.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. And it's also, I think, you were talking about love earlier, especially men saying "I love you" to each other. I think there's a natural kind of aversion to. Well, it's not just what I think. I think many authors have agreed that there's a natural aversion to opening ourselves up with saying something as wildly committing as "I love you," because that carries with it all sorts of connotations about devotion and commitment over time and so forth. And so it's a power thing. With men, I think and also with, men and women in heterosexual relations, I think that it's a power thing about love. And, who says it first, who responds, how often it's said. I mean, there's so many strings to it. It's just like getting back to the core value stuff. If you can put the opinions about it away and stop judging it and just take it for what it is. I love you. I love what you're doing in your life. I love how you're there for me. I can talk to you. I means all of those things. It doesn't have to be anything about, and you better do it for the rest of your life, and you better do it in the way I want it.
Right.
If you get those opinions out of it, I think that vulnerability and that just the saying of it and the joy, that the feeling that comes from it is quite expressive and quite rewarding.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. And when I say it, and I know when you say it, there's no expectation of
That's right.
what the other person needs to do.
That's right. And that's a hard lesson to get. I'm putting it out, but it may not come back. Wow. That is so tough for people, but you got to do it.
With ego, it's so tough.
That's
but
right.
I don't feel my heart closed if someone doesn't say it back or they're uncomfortable with it. I feel like I'm about my heart opening.
Yeah.
And then if both our hearts opens, oh baby, like we're taking this life experience to the next level, this shared experience of whatever it may be. But I really want to keep my heart open. And when I say it, I'm acknowledging that the humanity in the other person, like I'm connecting with that.
That's beautiful.
It's a beautiful thing, man. So I love what Chris says, which is it's not about what I believe. It's about what I want to give. Oh man, what if every person came into the workplace with that? You know what I'm saying? In the pandemic, with people, on different sides regarding masking and vaccinations and stuff like that, what if they suspended that and they went with, it's not about what I believe, it's about what I want to give to Mayo Clinic, to the patients, to my colleagues, to myself. Dude, it becomes very simple. Life becomes very simple and easy. And I'm all about that. So I've done it the other way. So Rick, thank you for a great show, man. I love you.
I love you. You are a great example. And I hope the folks who watch this know that you're always available for them. I'm sure that they do. And I hope the people who might feel a little reticent or reluctant to talk to or ask for help or, be around you and learn some of the things that have helped you stop suffering so that they can stop suffering. I hope they take advantage of that relationship. I'm envious because I'm 100 and some miles away from you, and I miss being with you and the guys all the time like I used to be.
Me too, Rick. I miss that too, man. I love you, Rick.
I love you, buddy. Adios.
Adios.